Grace and peace. Good day, everyone. Now, we all know that literature review is a foundational part of academic research. It helps researchers to understand what has already been studied and to identify the knowledge gap as well as justify the need for new research. Now, today we're going to discuss about two types of literature review, which is the systematic literature review and scoping literature review. Now, both are ways researchers look at existing studies on a topic. Now, but they are used for different purpose and follows different steps. First, we have systematic literature review. So, a systematic review is used when a researcher wants to answer a specific question. So, a systematic literature review, it is a rigorous research methodology that provides a comprehensive and unbiased summary of existing scholarly research, to answer a specific, well-defined research question. So, it follows a strict and transparent methodology to locate, evaluate, and synthesize all relevant studies. Now, this type of review is commonly used in health sciences, psychology, education, and policy research. So, the goal is to minimize bias by following a predefined protocol, and it is usually according to the standards like the PRISMA guideline. A PRISMA guideline, it refers to the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. These are sets of evidence-based minimum standards that is designed to improve the reporting quality of systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So we have here an example of a research question. So, does exercise help reduce depression in teenagers? So, for researchers to answer this question, first, they must search many databases for studies on that specific topic. This means that they must look to multiple scientific databases and sources to find all the research studies related specifically to exercise and its effect on this depression among teenagers. Now, the goal is to be thorough and include as many relevant studies as possible. Now, the next step would be pick only the best quality studies. This means that from all the studies found, researchers must evaluate their quality. They select those that have strong methods and reliable data to ensure the review is based on trustworthy evidence. Next would be follow a strict process or recipe to make sure they are being fair and thorough. So this process is predetermined and carefully designed to minimize bias. It involves specific steps for searching, selecting, and analyzing studies so that the review can be repeated and trusted. The next step would be often combine the results to see the overall effect. And this is called the meta-analysis. So, after selecting the best studies, researchers sometimes use statistical methods to combine their results. This helps to understand the general impact of exercise on teenage depression across all studies, rather than relying on individual findings. Now, let us briefly discuss about the features of SLR. First, it answers a narrow and focused question. So, a systematic review starts with a clearly defined, specific research question to ensure the review addresses a precise topic. Now, next, predefined criteria. Before reviewing studies, a strict inclusion and inclusion criteria are established. This is to determine which studies will be considered relevant. Next, comprehensive search strategy. So, researchers use an extensive and thorough approach to search multiple databases and sources to find all relevant studies on the topic. Next, quality appraisal required. Each selected study is critically assessed for its methodological quality to ensure the review is based on reliable evidence. Lastly, quantitative or qualitative synthesis. So the findings from the included studies are combined either statistically or through thematic analysis. This is to draw overall conclusions. Now let us move on to scoping literature review. So unlike systematic review, scoping review addresses broader research questions and it is used to map key concepts in a research area. So the purpose of scoping review is not to answer specific question but to explore the extent, range, and the nature of research activity. It is used to identify key concepts, gaps, and trends. So it is particularly useful when first the topic is emerging or not yet well defined, or if you want to understand how much evidence exists, or if you want to identify knowledge gaps, theoretical frameworks or types of evidence available. Now, like systematic reviews, scoping reviews follow structured guidelines such as the PRISMA scoping review checklist. Now we have here a research question. What kind of support exists for students with mental health challenges? So this kind of review helps to first show what research has already been done. Now, a scoping review provides a broad overview of all the studies and informations available about the topic, in which in this case, support for students with mental health challenges. Now, it summarizes existing knowledge, helping researchers and practitioners quickly understand what evidence and insights are currently available without needing to read each individual study. Next, we have spot where there are gaps. Gaps, these are areas that haven't been studied much. So by systematically mapping the existing research, the review identifies that areas that are least explored or completely missing. So these gaps could be specific types of support, particularly in this case, student populations or geographic regions. This highlights by highlighting these gaps, it is crucial because it points to opportunities for future research where new studies could have the most impact. Lastly, we have it helps to understand the range of topics, types of studies, or methods used. So the review also organizes the literature based on themes, types of interventions, and research methods. So for example, it might categorize studies based on whether they focus on counseling, peer support, or digital interventions, and whether they use surveys, experiments, or qualitative interviews. So this comprehensive mapping helps the stakeholders to understand the diversity of approaches and the strengths or limitations of the existing research. Now let us briefly discuss about the features of scoping review. So it answers a broad and exploratory research question. This means that this type of review starts with a wide question that explores a general topic rather than trying to answer something that is specific. Next, it is based on flexible inclusion criteria. So the criteria for choosing which studies to include can change as the review progresses, allowing more adaptability in what gets analyzed. Next, descriptive or thematic synthesis. So the findings are summarized by grouping similar themes or describing patterns instead of using statistical analysis. Next, quality appraisal is optional. So assessing the quality of each study isn't always required since the goal is to map the research rather than judge its strength. Next, ideal for new or emerging topics. So scoping reviews are best used when a subject is still developing and not much research has been done yet. Now we've already discussed about what is systematic literature review and what is scoping literature review. Now let us talk talk about when to use them. So you use SLR when first you need to answer specific questions. So systematic literature review is best when your research has a focused, well-defined question that requires a precise answer. So it helps to gather and evaluate high-quality evidence to support clear conclusions. Next, you use SLR when you're evaluating effectiveness. So if you want to know whether an intervention works, like whether exercise reduces anxiety, so a systematic review can combine results from multiple studies to measure overall effectiveness. This makes it especially useful for evidence-based decision making in healthcare, education, and policy. Now, when to use scoping review? So you use scoping when first you want to explore a field. So scoping reviews are ideal when you're just starting to explore a broad or complex topic. So and don't yet have a narrow question in mind. So they help map what has been studied and give an overview of the available research. Next, you use scoping when you need to identify gaps or trends. So by summarizing the range or and types of research that exists, a scoping review can show where more studies are needed. So it also highlights the patterns, the trends, then the inconsistencies in how a topic has been studied over time. So that is all. Thank you for listening.